Listen to this. Amongst all the madness right now, Trump and his tariffs, and it's nuts at the moment, the president of Emirates has recently come out and said this. You need to check this out. Yep, that's right. The leader of arguably the largest carrier in the world has spoken about how the entire travel industry is facing a level of uncertainty not seen since the '08 financial crisis. I mean, when you consider the constant push and pull of the global economy due to the ongoing trade war, it's fair to say that the tough times could be ahead for airline carriers around the world. The impact on their supply chains is squeezing margins as the cost of parts for maintaining their fleets skyrockets. And as the cost of living continues to rise, the impact it could have on the pockets of travelers could be detrimental for the entire industry. Some could say there's turbulent air ahead. In all seriousness, reading that article did one thing for me. It got me thinking, how did Emirates do it? How did they do it? How did they get themselves into the position that they currently find themselves in to this very day? Because when you think about it, they face the exact same challenges that every single carrier faces around the world every single day. So what makes Emirates so special? There has to be some strategy, some lesson that we as coaches and business owners can extract from Emirates and apply it to our own business. Now, you see, to fully understand how Emirates got to where they are now, you need to know where they came from. Emirates was founded in 1985 in response to Dubai's pretty much over-reliance on Gulf Air, who essentially were the dominant carrier in the Middle East, in fact, in the entire region. You see, during this time, Gulf Air was in fact the joint carrier of 4 Gulf states: Bahrain, Qatar, Abu Dhabi, and Oman. Gulf Air's strong position essentially controlled the flow of international passengers between London and Western Europe, the Middle East, and Pakistan and India. Dubai was a feeder route into these 2 much larger hubs. And so with low passenger volume, the explosive growth of both Abu Dhabi and Bahrain, the latter of which was actually popular with expats as the regional business hub, it's no surprise as to why Gulf Air withdrew services to and from the city. It's ironic, actually. Gulf Air withdrawing services from Dubai, they unintentionally created a monster, because what it did is it forced the Dubai government to take action. Because with less flights coming in and out of the city, Dubai found itself in a place where it essentially had lost its international connectivity. So Emirates was founded as a solution to a problem. This leads me on nicely onto really the first lesson that I really truly internalized and took on board and really started to appreciate for the first time just how important this one thing is. And that is aligning your product, your business model, really everything, down one single strong vision. Because Emirates wasn't just a business. It was a tiny cog amongst many other mechanical gears as part of a larger mechanism for the vision and dream of what Dubai was supposed to become and what it became today. As spoken into existence back then by the father of Dubai, Sheikh Rashid bin Zayed Al Maktoum, and his brother, Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum. And these guys were so smart, because they realized back then that they could not have Dubai just rely solely on oil as its main export. No, they had this crazy vision that Dubai would become world leaders in tech, finance, tourism, infrastructure, engineering. And not only did that come true, but they exceeded expectations beyond what they could have ever probably dreamed of. And now Dubai found itself in a position where not only have they been there and done that, but now they're moving into world leaders in AI, crypto, and Web3 development. So from inception to pretty much the end of the 90s, Emirates had grown, and they had grown fast, multiplying their fleet by acquiring new jets such as the 777s, and pretty much 5xing the amount of destinations that they served. Now, with all these assets in place, this gave Emirates the resources, platform, and capacity to start connecting the dots for the master plan. Remember, the painting for Dubai to be a place of innovation and luxury. But in order to do that, they needed to ferry people into Dubai to actually experience what it was all about. Emirates was point A for the start of that experience. So how did Emirates solve this? Well, first things first, Emirates had to get millions passing through Dubai. To do this, Emirates leveraged Dubai's unique geographic position as a sort of middle point between East and West. In order to fully take advantage of this position globally, they used what's called a hub and spoke model, essentially turning Dubai into a central connection point for their entire network. You see, in this model, instead of flying direct routes between cities, passengers fly to the central hub, aka Dubai, and then connect onwards to their final destination. This centralizes operations, but crucially, it also fills out Emirates planes because now you have flights from cities all around the world that go through Dubai. If, for example, you have one plane flying from London to Cape Town via Dubai, that plane is filled with passengers who themselves may also be traveling to Cape Town, but will also be filled with passengers flying to different destinations like Sydney, Bangkok, Mumbai. But the plane for the second leg to Cape Town is also completely filled because it itself is filled with passengers who themselves started their journey in New York, Rio, Tokyo, and so on and so forth. However, this actually isn't that much of a groundbreaking new insight. In fact, many other carriers use this exact same model. But why are Emirates successful with it versus other airliners? The answer again lies in Dubai's perfect geographic positioning. In fact, 2/3 of the world's population live within an 8-hour radius of Dubai. Now we compare that to carriers like Air France or Lufthansa, who themselves also run this hub and spoke model, but have their hubs in Paris and Frankfurt respectively. Dubai sits at the natural crossroads between Europe, Asia, Africa, and Australia. This strategic advantage allows Emirates to offer connections between city pairs that would be impractical for other carriers, all whilst maintaining reasonable flight durations for passengers. The alternative strategy, as I mentioned, is the point-to-point model. So, thanks to its position, Emirates has the clear advantage over other carriers using the hub and spoke model. But they are also up against carriers using the point-to-point model. And with that, they somehow have to find a way of stealing market share from the advantage of just straight up flying direct to the city without all the faff of having to go through Dubai for a couple hours. So what is the solution here? Because they have to stick to the master plan, luxury and innovation. They're painting the picture of the Dubai experience, the Emirates experience, which means integrating new technology when it becomes available into their service, constantly looking at ways to enhance their overall passenger experience. And you could look at Emirates' history from the 90s right the way through to now, and they've left clues. They were the first to install at-sea entertainment in all classes, and generally considered their Emirates in-flight entertainment system is the premier standard for the whole industry. It's the gold standard. They were also first to install air-to-ground fax services for businessmen in the 90s. They were early adopters of the premium economy cabin class. Not the creators, but they took that experience and they elevated and took it to whole new levels. They were the biggest operators of the Airbus A380, a modern engineering marvel, whilst their competitors and rivals were still using legacy Airbus fleets and the legendary Boeing 747, which to keep up with the A380 could only go through retrofits where possible to fit in some technologies. But the Airbus A380 was a completely new aircraft, sleek, sophisticated, quiet. It aligned perfectly with the Emirates brand and allowed them to pretty much own the A380 experience. And the A380 experience wasn't just an aircraft itself. To specifically operate the A380, they built an entire terminal around this one plane, which meant smooth and seamless passenger transfers. So yeah, when I said align everything, brand, strategy, I meant everything. Do you realize that these guys synergized an entire end-to-end user experience? I'm talking about the brand, the product, the infrastructure they built around it. All of it is a reflection of a vision for an entire city. Do you know how crazy that is? But in my opinion, nothing cemented Emirates' image more than when they unveiled for the first time, the first of any other carrier, the first fully enclosed, fully private first-class cabin on a plane. Now, I actually find this super interesting, actually, that when you actually list out a bunch of Emirates services, just as I have, but then you actually have a peek and try and learn about what their target demographic is, they have to appeal to their target demographic for this expectation through their brand name of uber quality and ultra luxury. Yet they still need to turn a profit. They still need to turn a profit by filling out their high capacity planes. Now we're talking 400 to 600 passengers per flight. And this is where I truly believe that Emirates have played a masterstroke. It's one of the reasons I actually believe that they're so successful, because they have managed to create a product that not only screams luxury, but also screams accessible luxury to perfectly cater for both target demographics. Now, obviously, when we're actually trying to understand a product strategy that perfectly aligns with both of the following target demographics: first class cabins, the Emirates lounge, the cocktail bar in the sky, that obviously appeals to your upper class and your business class travelers. But here's the thing, they only make up a tiny proportion of the plane, the flight itself. The rest of the flight, economy and premium economy seats. And those seats are filled by value-seeking flyers and also non-price sensitive flyers. Now, arguably, they're going to be made up of middle-class families and also middle-class to upper-class solo travelers. And one set of people might be more concerned with price than the other, but both are fine with Emirates because they're also seeking and have that expectation of accessible luxury that I've just mentioned before. And now Emirates' product strategy aligns with that perfectly, just as I've said before with the top of the line in-flight entertainment system, but also marginally larger economy seats, a better in-flight experience with arguably one of the better in-flight menu options and food experiences seen across any carrier globally. But they also managed to hit the nail on the head when it comes to affordability, in part due to their hub and spoke model. It turns out flying big boy planes often equals a cheaper cost per seat. And this trickled down into their pricing strategy and gave Emirates a surprisingly competitive pricing for their economy class, considering the perceived luxury. It's also not just their product strategy. This idea and concept and play of luxury versus accessible luxury, it trickles down into their marketing. And it's evident, you can actually see it in everything from their iconic 2015 TV ad that starred Jennifer Aniston, who flew the Emirates experience. And in the ad, she wakes up to the first class cabin and she also experiences the cocktail lounge and the Emirates lounge itself. So it's showcasing those elements. But in my opinion, the specific use of Jennifer Aniston herself in the celebrity marketing, that was a very strategic and it's a very smart way to actually appeal to the middle class families, because the perception of having Jennifer Aniston star and market your brand, of course, she's very successful, she's very wealthy, but I think globally she's also known for her family side and fun-loving side as well, and that specifically targets to the other side of the market as well. Then in addition to that, they also leveraged popular travel content creators on YouTube, leveraging their own audiences in order to showcase the first class cabins and have them actually come on, vlog their entire experience in order to build awareness. And yeah, just look at the list of sponsorships that Emirates has aligned themselves with over the years. It speaks for itself. I mean, come on. AC, Arsenal and Real Madrid off the rip. Of course, Emirates' sponsorship with Arsenal was legendary, having been the stadium and shirt sponsor for Arsenal since 2006. But interestingly, if you consider all the teams here, including both Olympique Lyon and Benfica, there's a common theme in that all these teams are some of the biggest and most prestigious clubs in their respective countries. What was the impact of this in generating brand awareness and brand image for Emirates? That they tap into huge fan bases? That they only sponsor the best of the best? I look at the FA Cup. the oldest cup competition in the world, and I think history and legacy, which is quite funny actually, since Emirates, compared to other airliners like the British Airways, does not have that legacy of being one of the first commercial airliners in the world. But by simply positioning themselves against the FA Cup, Emirates are tapping into what? 550 million viewers for the FA Cup final every year, plus the prestige and history of the competition. It's incredible how, as we scroll down, just how many different bases Emirates covers across multiple sporting arenas and markets. The Rugby World Cup, for capturing eyeballs in rugby-mad countries like New Zealand and South Africa, or 4 tennis majors, arguably the biggest sport in North America, horse racing, golf, cricket, cycling, sailing, Aussie rules. Emirates have truly mastered getting eyes onto the Emirates logo. So essentially, when you actually combine all these different elements, what you end up with is actually a very well-crafted funnel. So if we actually go ahead and break it down, top of funnel, Emirates builds awareness through their plethora of global sponsorships, cleverly position themselves against prestigious brands and sporting events that they know generates billions of eyes every year. Moving down the funnel, awareness, but also brand consideration through influencer marketing, celebrity marketing, and ads. At which point, those who choose to participate in the experience economy and choose Emirates as their service provider are met with crisp user experiences online and via the Emirates app, the offer to join their loyalty program and start building up their Emirates portfolio to take advantage of all the upgrades that they have available. And then lastly, Emirates inspires customer loyalty and retention via the luxurious end-to-end Emirates experience. I dare say that the lesson we can take away from this is your brand equity, or the perception of your brand in consumers' minds, really, really matters. But only if your full end-to-end experience matches that perception. Essentially, so far in this video, we've basically covered marketing, we've covered product, we've covered the brand name itself. However, there's one last thing that I'd like to dive into. And that actually stems from my own experience flying with Emirates. Well, usually I'd fly, if every now and again, from the UK here to South Africa to actually visit my family. And whenever I've used Emirates and we actually end up going through Dubai, one of the things that always stood out to me, and I don't know why, is just all the planes parked up outside the airport on the apron, on the tarmac, or Boeing 777s and Airbus A380s. Now, again, at the time, I didn't really think much of it, but the more I'd done my research on Emirates now, the more I started to realize that every single decision that they make, every single detail that they consider has been very strategically thought out, as Emirates are hyper intentional about everything when it comes to their growth. Which is why this is the final lesson I've taken away from my hours and hours of research. It seems so obvious, but simplicity wins. Something worth noting, I've already mentioned previously in the video, that Emirates and the Dubai government came together in order to build a bespoke terminal specifically tailored for the needs of the A380. This, of course, carries across to Emirates' 777 fleet. But you compare this strategy, which is a significant advantage to Emirates, versus the strategy that pretty much every other carrier and airliner has to deal with around the world. Because when you actually look into the makeup and the layout of other airports, they don't have terminals and buildings that are specifically built around a single aircraft. In fact, it's the opposite. They have to accommodate a multitude of different aircraft. And with that comes different requirements, different procedures for loading, unloading baggages, cleaning the aircraft itself. So essentially, you have all these carriers fighting not only for ground resources for their operations, but also for space on the tarmac, space in the runway. The logistics around this is a ball ache for all carriers, and it actually is a massive cost for them. Emirates, however, when they're operating out of Dubai, they're the only ones operating out of Dubai. And because they have 2 planes, 2 products, this means simplification. And that means scale and efficiency. And I'll show you exactly what I mean by this. Because now maintenance, overhaul, and retrofit of the aircraft becomes super streamlined, as the engineers and techs essentially only have 2 planes, 2 products to work on and create processes around. It also means that ground operations is standardized. So at Dubai International, they can clean, refuel, and turn around planes a lot quicker than Emirates competitors can. The training of pilots and aircrew is also standardized, further reducing costs. And when it comes to the boarding of passengers, that too is a streamlined process, as the aircraft layouts are the same, the aircraft layouts are standardized, making this process that much simpler. All in all, across the board, Emirates are making huge savings where they can. You throw in the fact that Dubai International is alive and operating 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, I think we have a winning formula. It was all part of the master plan. So yeah, simplified products, synergized marketing efforts, along with the strategy, all aligned with what that vision for Dubai was supposed to become and what it is and what it's turned into today. A brand name that during the 2000s held some serious weight and went toe-to-toe and pretty much displaced legacy fleets with serious prestige like British Airways. It's no surprise as to why Emirates find themselves in such a strong position today. I think it will be interesting to see how Emirates adapt and restructure their entire strategy, given that the majority of its fleet is nearing its end of life. Of course, there'll be new planes in development, but as of today and looking into the future, there is nothing coming into the market that will be able to replace the A380 for the sheer size and capacity that it offered Emirates and allowed them to really own that A380 experience. Whatever direction they end up going down, I'm sure as coaches and business owners, there's guaranteed to be something new that we can pick up and learn from this industry giant.